Greetings to you wherever you are. I hope this message meets you in a very open-minded state of consciousness or awareness. I hope that this message is very much timely because this is what you've been searching for. This is what you've been looking for. And you come to realize that you would have found that which you have been looking for. You see, there are more questions in life than answers, and people are seeking answers. Yet, there are those who act as if they're not seeking for answers in their life because they allow their ego self to take control of their circumstances in life. But today, I want to teach you how you can change the directory or the trajectory of your life by applying this technique in your life. And so if you're listening to me and you have never applied the technique of practicing conscious and deliberate mental exercises to give you what you want in life, if you have never practiced that lifestyle, you have never known anything about that lifestyle, you have never received any teaching of that lifestyle, today could be the first time in your life that you set out to understand how your mind works and how the power of imagination is your greatest power and the only power that you have in this world that can give you your every desire. For example, anything at all that you believe in, you have to have some form of imagination taking place. For example, if you believe that you can own a certain house, you have to have a vision of that house. If you believe that you can drive a certain car, a certain Jeep, or whatever automobile it is, you have to have a clear and vivid imagination of that which you would like to drive. If you like to live in a certain town, a certain city, a certain part of the country where you would like to reside, you want to be among a certain class of people. You want to live close to a lake. You want to live close to the sea. Or you want to live high up in the mountain. You want to live close to nature. Whatsoever is your desire, you have to have a clear and vivid imagination of that which you would definitely like to see becomes a reality in your life. And that is why it's important for you to learn the power of imagination. And it's only through practicing using your imagination that you prove for yourself that imagination do create reality. And that everything in this world, it was first imagined. It was first a thought, it was first an idea, it was first imagined. Could you think of the first millionaire or multi-millionaire in this world? They had to walk by a certain set of laws and principles to become what they did become. For example, let me give you an example. There's a building in my country that is named Carnegie Building. And the reason why it is named Carnegie Building, it is because it was donated by Carnegie, which is Andrew Carnegie. That building in my country, most people refer to that building as the old library. Okay. the old library, because it used to always be a library, and most people would have known that building to be a library. So most people refer to it as the old library, but very few people really know that the name of the building that they call the library is the Carnegie Building. And very few people know the history of Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie, because at the building, you not see the name Andrew Carnegie, you see the name Carnegie. And there's a photo there of Carnegie. Well, Carnegie and among many others, they understood the power of imagination and how to use their imagination and the practice. Carnegie practiced up to a point that he could have hold a thought for at least up to, I would say, 5 minutes. Because I get to understand when they challenge him and ask him what was the reason or the cause of him becoming so rich in such a quick space of time, being just an ordinary worker or laborer in the steel mill and come to own the whole steel company in the age whereby it was a revolutionary age, whereby they were moving out of the agricultural age and moving into the industrial age. And so he had a clear vision of the age that he was living in, and he used it to the best of his ability. Well, I'm saying to you, the age that we're living in right now, if you do not learn to use the power of your imagination, you'll get left behind. We're living in an automation age. We are living in a digital age. We are living in a mind age. We are living in an age whereby you have to realize that you have to move by the speed of thought to be able to keep up with the innovation, the science, the technology, and all the new things that is coming forth, to keep up in line with the rest of this world and understand the era that you live in. You have to tap into the power of your mind. You have to learn how to utilize your mind power. You have to learn how to use mind magic by understanding how magical you are and that you are living in a magical world. If you would discover your magnetic and electrical self, that's how you will be introduced to your magical self. And that is the part of you that I'm actually introducing you to by drawing your attention to the power of your imagination. You see, you can find the word nation in the word imagination. You can find the word Magi. You can pronounce it as Magi or Magi. So you can basically find the word magic, the word Magi. And if you study these words, they deal with wisdom, they deal with understanding, it deals with discernment. And so, from since the dawn of time, there have always been wise men in every society who understood the secret of energy, vibration, and frequency. How everything is built on energy, vibration, and frequency. And so, the sages, the prophets, the seers, the mystics, all these men are highly visionary men and women. Men and women who understand the power of seeing things through their mind's eye, which is through the eye of imagination. And so, in short, I'm saying to you that you are already a visionary, but you're not using your visual power. to achieve your every desire. Well, a good way to use your visual power is to know exactly what you want. And you get pen and paper, or you get pencil and paper, whichever material you want to use to write on, and you be definite. There's a book that has been written by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. And in chapter 1, he speaks of definiteness of purpose, whereby you have to be definite about what you want, which means you have to know what you want. Most people live their life in this world and they do not know exactly what they want. Some people do not know what vehicle they want to drive because they do not even have the color of that vehicle in their minds. They do not even have the date of it being manufactured. Which year is it? 2015, 2016, 2018, 2020, 2021, 22, 23, our most recent 2026. You have to know exactly what year vehicle you want, what color vehicle you want. You have to have a vision of the interior, how you would like the interior to look. Or you have to have a feel of how you like the interior to feel. You have to have a smell of how you would like the interior of your automobile to smell. Even the conversations that you're going to hold in your automobile, it's good for you to have a vivid imagination of what. For example, let me give you an example, right? Many times when I'm driving and I encounter someone on the road with loud music. They play loud music. That person was envisioning themselves a long time ago, driving their vehicle with all of that loud music. And so they live in their imagination. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and they don't know it. And so whether they went to the bank and borrowed the money or whatever, because they're doing it unconsciously, they got it whichever way. And so they might be responsible to be answering to the bank for the next 5 or 10 years. Okay. While at the same time, they're feeding their ego self with all of the loud music and all of the other distractions and pollutions that they're allowing to pollute themselves out of their ignorance because they're not informed. And so you are very fortunate to be here right now getting this message because you've been informed. And because you've been informed, you've been equipped. And because you've been equipped, you've been given the tools to work with, to empower yourself, to broaden your horizon, to live your dream life. Because life itself is a dream. And so if you do not know that this life itself is a dream, you wouldn't know how to go into your dream and make it a reality in this three-dimensional physical world, this tangible world where you can see, taste, touch, and smell, and you believe it to be real. But when you understand how a thought works and the magical power behind your thoughts, how out of nothing you're going to form and shape and mold something, if you only think about how imagination really works, you would know that it is the place where you generate everything. Okay, so you are actually a living, breathing generator. And so most people do not know that they are a generator. Another thing is that most people do not know that they are an operator. They have an operating system. And that system, doesn't matter how powerful it is, if you do not operate that system, nothing is going to generate in your life. Nothing is going to operate in your life on a conscious and a deliberate level. It's only from a level of you being unconscious or ignorant. Let me put it that way. So it's like you in darkness and you do not know that you're in darkness. And so I'm bringing the light to you. Your town, your city, your country, and you also think deeply, you would realize that everything that you're beholding, that there was a time when it wasn't there. There was a time when it was not. Then you have to ask yourself if there was a time when it was not. For example, you look at a bank. There was a time when the bank was not. You look at a department store. There was a time when it was not. You look at a restaurant. There was a time when it was not. You look at electricity poles and the lines. You look at the refrigerator. There was a time that it was not. And what do I mean by that? There was a time when no one have perceived and conceived that it was possible to bring electricity to the world. And so if you study Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Edison and so on, you see how much they were very much instrumental in us having electricity. Yet, though electricity was not there in the form that we can use it for our refrigerators and televisions and all these other things, yet, in our realm, it was there under a certain level of vibration, under a certain level of frequency. But someone had to vibrate to that level of frequency to bring it into his. For example, if you grow up in the Caribbean, okay, or you grow up, like, say, in my country, most likely you were taught to look outside of yourself and not to believe in yourself. Most likely you've never been taught the power of your imagination. You've been taught the power of some entity on the outside. You were taught to believe in a God outside of your consciousness, outside of your awareness, which means to say outside of yourself. So you never really get in touch with your true self. You never really learn to embrace yourself and really love yourself and believe in yourself. So you live your life with self-doubt and self-hate, but you do not know that you are carrying around self-doubt. You do not know that you're carrying around self-hate because you do not understand the power of your subconscious mind. So most people are dwelling in their conscious mind, which is their reasoning mind. The mind that you use to reason and analyze things, the analytical mind. But most people never tap into their supernatural mind, their non-physical self. And this is where imagination comes into play. Okay? So my brother, my sisters, if you do not practice daily to use your imagination, you will never figure out the power of your imagination. If you never write down your desires in life and chase how they're being created, you will never understand the power of your imagination. Moreover, you never discover that God in man is man's imagination, man's awareness of being, which is to say the very life in you is the creator that creates all things. And you could prove it for yourself. But when you prove it for yourself, you no longer need a minister to minister to you, because you would start to live your life like a master. And when you're a master thinker, you don't need anyone to be your pastor. You don't need anyone to be your leader, because you take responsibility for shaping your own character. You take responsibility for your own life. And so you don't look for no outside savior because you found the saving power within yourself. And so that's what I'm teaching you, how to find okay. So I just want to make sure comment, let me know that I'm back and you're hearing and seeing me clearly. Because we had a little disruption a while ago. Okay. Yes, my brothers and my sisters. We use a medium of exchange in this world that we refer to as money. And whether you're using euro money, you're using US dollars, you're using the pounds, it doesn't matter what's the name of the currency. There's only one currency. There's only one electricity. There's only one energy. And money is energy. Okay. And it's thought energy. Money was first, it was first an idea, it was first imagined. In order to come up money is being printed. They could print any amount. But it is the most powerful possession that you have. And no one can stop you from using your mind. The Chinese man can't stop you from using your mind. The Japanese man can't stop you from using your mind. The Indian man can't stop you from using your mind. The white man can't stop you from using your mind. No one can stop you from using your mind. That's why you've been given control. That's why you've been ship. And you are the leader. And because the laws, the reason why most of the time people do not learn to rearrange their mind is because of the way how they were raised. For example, if you grow up in a family where there seems to be lack and scarcity, and you always hear them saying that water more than flour, or you hear them speak negatively about money, or they speak negatively about the rich, most likely you do the same thing. And one thing I learned in life is that if you want to become rich, you must never speak against the rich if you want to become one of them. Okay? And you must never be quick to judge others. Judge yourself. And you will realize that your greatest enemy is yourself, and your greatest friend is also yourself. So most people have never really learned anything about themselves. Most people have denied themselves while trying to please the system or trying to please the world, trying to do things to be accepted by society, for society to see them a certain way. Like, for example, many people have been convinced that if they practice meditation, if they practice visualization, if they practice to use their mind, they've been told by their pastors and their religious leaders that they're going to get demons and they're going to become demon possessed with demons. And they allow their religious leaders to tell them what is wrong and what is right, when nothing is wrong and nothing is right. Because you can't have night without day and you can't have day without night. So the night is to balance the day and the day is to balance the night. For example, those with religious mindset, they will tell you about the devil, but how could they teach what they are teaching or preach what they are preaching if there wasn't no devil? So how could you speak against something when you actually need that thing? For you to know that you are an honest person, there must be a dishonest person. So the dishonest person is just another version of you, but it's a lower version. So there's a positive side of you and there's a negative side of you, just as there is a poor side of you and there's a rich side of you. And I'm trying to teach you how to discover the rich version of yourself. And the biggest mistake you can make is to say that you don't have this and you don't have that, so you can't say this and you can't say that. That's a trick. Even those who read their Bibles and do not understand that the Bible is really a magic book, they would realize that the Bible says, let the poor say what? I am poor. I say, let the poor say I am rich. It is teaching you a science that the preachers cannot really explain to you, but I can explain the science to you. I say, let the poor say that I am rich, and let the weak say that I am strong. Most people waited until they possess certain things to know that they already possess it. But when you know you already possess it without you see it in the tangible physical world before, so where you can touch it and see it and smell it. But when you understand the non-physical world and how the non-physical world really works, and you understand when you have a burning desire, that burning desire is a spiritual sensation. And that spiritual sensation is pushing off a certain wave. And that wave can turn into a particle. And when it turns into a particle, you can't see it. You don't see it. It happens when you put a seed in the soil. When the seed begins to grow, you don't see it. It is only when the seed reaches a certain level whereby it goes beyond the surface of the soil, that's when you realize that the seed has germinated and it begins the growth process. But it was growing all the time. And so your powers would be growing all the time when you practice meditation, when you practice visualization, when you practice to use your imagination. Your power growing all the time, but you're not seeing it. Until at a certain time, certain things start to happen in your life. And the process might seem like it's a slow process, but it's gonna compound. And when it compounds, then you start to see the results that you've been seeking for happening in your life. But you have to be patient and you have to be consistent. For example, think about a great athlete who have accomplished much in life, whether in sports or in the Olympics or whatever, okay? You think about someone who would have accomplished a lot, and you would realize it's the power of the mind, it's the power of the imagination. You would realize athletes, they use visualization to visualize their life the way they want to see it in this physical three-dimensional world. Let me say this to you before I come to a close and read these comments. Okay. Many years ago, I used my visualization, use my imagination, and I visualize. Okay. And I was working with a family at that time, a certain family. And I used visualization. When I finished using visualization, something communicate to me, an intelligence within me communicate to me that this is the power. This is the missing power. This is the missing link. This is what have people being broke, poor, and miserable. It's a lack of imagination. It's a lack of people using visualization. And when you think more deeply, you realize how much discipline it takes to trust your imagination. You realize the self-mastery it would take for you to master your imagination, for you to master visualization. And so you realize you could give anyone the game. So you could give as much knowledge, job game here, job game there, everywhere. Very few people gonna ever exercise what you're telling them. And so I remember many years ago I wanted to start my own fitness class. And so I did flyers and I carried them around the town. And I promised the people that they get back their money, no question asked, once they're not satisfied. And people took up the challenge. And I did everything that I know how to do, knowing that they're going to turn around and tell me it was their lack of discipline and not me. Because I put everything for them. Okay, what they should eat and so on, when they should eat and all of these different things. And why they should eat, what the things that I put there for them to eat and so on, to go along with their program. I know they will come to the exercise class. I know they would exercise. But I know it would take a lot of discipline to eat the way how I was telling them to eat. And I know if they're honest with themselves, they would say, had I took what you said to do and do it 100%, I would get more results. And most people said, you know, when I started doing what you told me to do, I was getting results. And along the way, I fall off. I follow a friend. And I went to eat fast food. I follow a friend. I drink something I wasn't supposed to drink. I follow a friend and I eat something I didn't have to eat. And it make me lose less weight, but I do lose some weight. I throw off weight. I see results. So everybody in the class, they did see some form of result. And so my brother, my sister, I'm saying to you, if you practice to use your imagination every day, by first of all knowing what you want and writing down what you want, and you visualize and visualize and visualize up to a certain amount of timing, and then you drop it, you forget about it, you plant the seed, you're sowing seed. I can guarantee you that the time gonna come when you're gonna get the result that you've been seeking. Okay. Now I just want to check the comments here. Okay, someone says that church has begun. Blessings. This is beyond church. Okay, church don't teach these kind of things. Okay. Church don't teach you to trust your imagination. Church don't teach you that God in man is your imagination. Okay. But if the person is referring to this church, okay, it's all fine, because this is the only church there is. Okay, someone say, what are my thoughts on Gnosticism? Okay, someone says also here that Christ is king. Well, your Christ consciousness have to be king who's gonna rule and govern your life. Okay, and whether you're Gnostic or you're a Christian or you're a Muslim or you're a Hindu, or even if you're a Buddhist, doesn't matter which one the identity you choose to brand yourself. At the end of the day, all is mind. Everything is mental, everything is psychological, everything has to first be a thought, it has to first be an idea, and it has to first be imagined. So what is more important is learning to use your imagination. That is what more important. Learning to use your imagination is more important than Gnosticism. Learning to use your imagination is more important than any religion. Learning to use your imagination is more important than any belief system there is on this planet. Because only when you learn to use your imagination that you would realize that truly imagination creates reality. Okay? And you have that creative power within you. You are to use it to achieve your every desire and live life on your own terms. So, my brother, my sister, I really want to thank you all very much for tuning in. I want to encourage you to check out all of the links that are down below. Check out my book, okay, on imagination. It is called Meditate to Eradicate Poverty. Most people grew up in the Caribbean, in Africa, and around the world, and so on, and who are raised to believe in secular Christianity and so on, and to look outside of themselves. They've never been taught the power of using meditation in their life. Meditation should be the meditation. Meditation should be the medication or the medicine that you use every day in your life for thorough healing. You want wholesome healing? Use meditation. So, my brother, my sisters, the main message I want to get across to you is that the only power you have is the power of your imagination. Use it to better your life and to help the rest of humanity by sharing your ability and your creativity. So, with that being said, I just want to say peace. Love you all. I hope to see you on my next live. I'm a Black Mad Guru. And remember to support this war. I'm out.